Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Kavita Chauhan. I teach in University of Hyderabad, and today we are discussing another module, which is Gautam and Vatsyayan on perception. This module is written by Tapan Kumar Chakravarti, the professor of Jadavpur University. Perception is considered the eldest in Praman family, as it is the only independent one. Hence, it has been admitted by all the systems of Indian philosophy. There is diversity of opinion among the scholars regarding the nature of it, but its independent character is not denied. In this section, the older Nyaya position regarding perception will be discussed along with its various aspects. So, perception is one of the pramans or sources of knowledge which has been accepted without any controversy by all the Indian theoreticians and philosophers. People might have been differences in the nature of defining perception, like different schools of philosophers like Buddhists and Nyayikas might have differences, but they have accepted perception or pratyaksh as one of the pramanas. Perception as defined by Gautam Maharshi is like this: Indriyartha sannikarshotpannam jnanam avyapadesham avyabhichari vyavasayatmakam pratyaksham. It is translated like this: perception is a kind of knowledge arising out of sense-object contact which is non-verbal, non-contradicted and non-fallible in nature. This definition has various epithets which we cannot reduce or we cannot avoid. These are in such a way discussed by Gautam Maharshi that if we avoid either of the epithets, the definition of perception would be incomplete. Now let us see what it is to give the definition of definition. A true definition, according to Gautam Maharshi, must fulfill two conditions, and these two conditions are asadharan dharma, the uncommon character for which it is to be defined, and lakshya is to be differentiated from alakshya. Lakshya is which is to be defined and alakshya which is not to be defined. So these two conditions must fulfill for the definition. Gautam Maharshi also mentioned that there can be three defects in a definition, and these three defects are ativyapti, over coverage, meaning that a definition may cover both that which is lakshya, that is to be defined, and alakshya, which is not to be defined, and avyapti, under coverage, that it defines only parts of a lakshya or the parts of which is to be defined, and asambhav is impossibility, meaning that which is not possible in lakshya or in the object which is to be defined. Each epithet is essential in the definition of perception. Without either of the epithet, a definition of perception would be incomplete. Now, first thing which we will discuss is sannikarsh, which appears in the definition, which is like that: Indriyarth sannikarsho utpanna. So, what is this sannikarsha? The term sannikarsh relation in the definition of perception signifies two types of relations: ordinary, that is laukik, and extraordinary, alokik. Hence, sannikarsh is of two types, laukik and alokik. Now, what is the laukik sannikarsh? Laukik sannikarsh again is of 6 types. These 6 types of laukik sannikarsh are: number 1, sanyog, conjunction; sanyukt samvay, conjoined inherence; sanyukt samveta samvay, conjoined inherent inherence; samvay, inherence; samveta samvay, inherent inherence; visheshan vishesha bhav, relation between qualifier and qualified. Now let us take one by one what are these 6 types of sannikarsh. In the perception of substance or dravya, the contact takes place between the sense organ and the substance is known as sanyog. So sanyog, which is one type of sandhikarsh, is known as the contact of the sense organs with the object. So any contact is known as sanyog. For example, in the perception of a jar by visual sense organ, the sandhikarsh is sanyog. Similarly, in the perception of a jar by tactual sense organ, the sandhikarsh is sanyog. Hence, all 5 sense organs, when come in contact with the outside object, that is known as sandhikarsh or sanyog. But in the perception of quality belonging to a substance, we require a different type of contact. The color of the jar is inherent in the jar, and the jar comes in conjunction with the eye. This is known as Sanyukta Samvay or Chakshu Samyukta Samvay. When the object comes in contact with the sense organs, that contact is known as Sanyog. But same sense organ, when comes in contact with the quality of the object, for example the color of jar, that is known as Sanyukta Samvay, or because eyes have come into contact or chakshus have come into contact with the object, that is known as Chakshu Sanyukta Samvay. Hence we require 2 types of contact, one for dravya, which is sanyog, and other for guna, which is present in the dravya in relation to samvay. For the colorhood is inherent samveta in color, which in turn is inherent samveta in dravya, say jar, and the visual sense organ is conjoined with the jar. So an object is perceived. For example, a jar is perceived with its color, for example, red colored jar. But the colorhood or colorness, redness, is inherent in jar. So the perception of colorhood with the object or with its color is known as Sanyukt Samveta Samvay. Again, in the perception of sound by the auditory sense organ, the relation is samvay. For sound is a quality or gun of akash, ether, and the relation existing between a guna and a guni is that of samvay. So samvay is the inherent relationship between the guna and guni. Last one is the Visheshan Visheshya Bhav. Earlier 5 were the Bhav Sambandh, and this is the last one. Visheshan Visheshya Bhav is the Abhav Sambandh, which is the knowledge of the absence of jar. Like the perception of the absence of jar is known as Visheshan Visheshya Bhav Sambandh. These 6 were the Lokik Sannikarsh. Now we discuss the Alokik Sannikarsh. Alokik Sannikarsh is the extraordinary sense object contact, or the contact of the sense organs with the object in an extraordinary way. These are of 3 types, and these 3 are Samanya Lakshan, Gyan Lakshan, and Yogaj. Samanya Lakshan is the knowledge of the universals, like table with its tableness. Like, for example, knowledge of table with the tableness. Second is Gyan Lakshan. Gyan Lakshan is the knowledge based on prior knowledge. For example, fragrance of sandal. Now, eyes or chakshus come in contact with the sandalwood, and at the same time fragrance is also perceived. So fragrance is perceived as the extraordinary perception. So that is known as Gyan Lakshan. And third is Yogaj, which is also the extraordinary Sannikarsh, is specific to the yogic intuitions. Yogis with their intuitive powers, they can have this third type of Sannikarsh, or the sense object contact. In this definition of Pratyaksh, we have discussed Sannikarsh, which is of 2 types, Lokik and Alokik. Now, another word which appears in this definition is the word Gyan. Now, the question is, why to include this word Gyan in the definition? whether it is essential or this definition is sufficient without Gyan. Let us see what purpose is served by the insertion of the word Gyan. Udyotkar, one of the Nyayikas, rightly observes that the necessity of inserting this word Gyan in the definition of Pratyaksh is to exclude over coverage or ati vyapati dosh of feelings like pleasure, pain, etc. The contact of the senses with the object produces pleasure and pain, but they are not in the nature of knowledge. As a matter of fact, feelings like pleasure and pain are included under the list of gunas. Knowledge is also a guna, but it is different from sukh, dukh, etc. To prevent ati vyapti in feeling like sukh, which is also caused by sense object contact, the word Gyan is necessary. The justification for the word Gyan in the definition is that it is to avoid ati vyapti dosha. Ati vyapti dosha is that which includes other objects, or which includes a lakshya with lakshya. So a lakshya in the definition are the sukh and dukh, pain and pleasure. Since pain, pleasure and knowledge are these three types of gunas, so when we define an object or a lakshya, it may include these three things. In order to avoid pain and pleasure, the word Gyan is used for, which is specific to knowledge. Another epithet in this definition which appears is Avyapdesha. Vatsyayan states the reason why Apyadesham is inserted in the definition. To express the sentiment of the opponent, he first of all states Yavadartham vai namadheya shabdah etc. Everything in this world is expressed and expressible through words only. The world is called Vachak, the object Vachya, and the relation between them is one of abhed, non-difference. That is why knowledge of Roop, Ras, etc. being possible through the use of words is due to words, Shabd Gyan. Being produced by words, the object sense is reducible to Shabd Gyan. As a result, Pratyaksh becomes tantamount to Shabd Gyan. To counter such view of the opponent and to vindicate the truths that Pratyaksh is different from Shabd Gyan. So the epithet of Avyapdesha is to avoid the dosha which is the Purva Paksha, saying that Pratyaksh can be similar to Shabd Gyan, or any knowledge of the object is associated with the name and form. This name and form has been contradicted by the Nyayikas. For them, any perception is not associated with the verbal cognition of the object. An object is disassociated with the verbal cognition. In the first place, the knowledge of the object is not always expressed through words. For example, a dumb person and an infant cannot characterize their knowledge of object through proper words, but that does not in any way suggest that they fail to perceive the object. In this example, what do we see is that if a child is not able to express one's knowledge of something in words, or a dumb person is not able to reveal the knowledge in words, that does not mean that someone does not have the knowledge of a particular object. In order to reduce such kind of defects, it is been said in the definition that perception is Avyapdesha. Secondly, those who are able to express the relation between word and object are also found to make a distinction between two kinds of knowledge, perceptual and verbal. They hold that a certain word stands for a certain object, another word stands for yet another object, and so forth. Such statements clearly express that Artha Gyan, knowledge of object, is not the same thing as Shabd Gyan, knowledge through words. In other words, to sense an object is one thing to name the object by words is quite another thing. So what do we see in this definition is that in Avyapdesham, that knowledge of an object and naming an object are two different things. Shabd Gyan and Arth Gyan are two different things. Arth Gyan is the purpose of the pratyaksh or perception. In a perceptual knowledge, it is the knowledge of the object which is devoid by its name and form. So name and form is the Shabd Gyan, whereas Arth Gyan is associated with the perceptual cognition. Now another important epithet which appears in the definition of pratyaksh is avyabhichari. Let us now consider the efficacy of the epithet avyabhichari inserted in the definition of perception. According to Bhashyakar, the significance of this epithet consists in distinguishing veridical perception from erroneous perception. To exclude such false perception known as viparya, the insertion of avyabhichari is extremely important. Bhashyakar points out that to perceive an object is that which was not there is avyabhichari pratyaksh. So this epithet avyabhichari is to make distinction from abhyabhichari, which is the erroneous cognition. We can have always the possibility of erroneous cognition. For example, the snake of rope and snake. There is one object, one entity lying there which can always be confused with the other one or superimposition. In order to make a distinction between erroneous cognition and cognition, avyabhichari epithet is essential in this definition of pratyaksh. The last and the most important epithet which appears in the definition is the vivasatmak. Watson draws our attention to the fact that certain decisive knowledge, nischatmak gyan, is the product of praman, not an indecisive state like sanchaya. Hence, what do we see? What is vivasatmakam is the distinction between the doubtful cognition and right cognition. So right cognition or the yatharth gyan is which is being taken care by this epithet vivasatmak. In fact, the vivasai means definite and certain knowledge which sanchaya is lacking. In other words, doubtful cognition cannot be raised to the status of definite and certain cognition, which is what perception is all about. In a sanchaya or in a doubtful cognition, what is the thing is that there is a confusion, there is a doubt. Whereas when we talk about pratyaksh, pratyaksh is which is leading to prama or the right cognition, where there is no doubt, there is certainty about the knowledge or object of knowledge. So in order to reduce in order to avoid sanchaya from perception, word vivasatmak is being used. That is why to exclude such indecisive cognition from the domain of perception, the word vivasatmak is inserted in the definition. So vivasatmak is the term which is essential in this definition, which avoids the sanchayatmak cognition in one's knowledge. Let us now discuss what is the importance of Uttapannam in this definition. The definition of perception by Gautam is meant for human perception alone. It is evident from his use of the word Uttapan, that is produced. So that which is produced is confined to humans. If it is confined to God, then it cannot be Uttapan, because God's perception is not produced since it is nitya or eternal. So that which is eternal is confined to God. So in this definition is confined to human perception, not the perception of God. If it is perception of God, then word Uttapan does not explain further. That is why God's perception does not come under the purview of Gautam's definition of perception at all. So no question of avyapti dosha in the definition. If it is God's perception, if we say that this definition is applicable to God's perception, then there would be ativyapti dosha because of the word utpan. Utpan is confined only to human cognition or human perception. So no question of avyapti affects the definition. It should be noted here that the later Nyayikas avoid sense-object reference to include God's perception. They prefer to define perception as Gyan Akaranakam Gyanam Pratyaksham, that is, perceptual cognition is not brought about by the instrumentality of any other knowledge. So what we have seen in this definition, the word utpan is confined to human knowledge, not to the God's knowledge. But the later Nyayikas also include God's perception in the definition. That's why for them Gyan is a karanam, not a karanam, whereas for the older Nyayikas Gyan is karanam. So this is the difference we find in the later Nyayikas and the earlier Nyayikas. So in the end we can summarize that perception for Nyayikas is direct cognition, which is not illusory, which is certain and non-verbal. And as we have seen, each epithet which appears in this definition, how accurately is applicable to this direct cognition. And direct cognition is also confined only to the human perception. It does not include God's perception, whereas later Nyayikas or Navya Nyayikas also include God's perception. With this, I hope you have followed what I have explained, and thank you very much.